Oh,
So welcome to Prader-Willi California Foundation's residential staff training. And we're going to be giving some special focus on behavioral management strategies. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get going. Okay, can you guys see this? Okay.
yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to minimize this. If you guys need anything, just unmute yourselves, ask the question, and again, we'll address it at some point. We'll make sure. So there are a number of physiological symptoms that are caused by Prader-Willi syndrome. It's a non-inherited genetic disorder, and it occurs just because some genes are missing on a chromosome. And those genes that are missing then cannot work properly to regulate the release of hormones in the body. And those hormones regulate growth, muscle tone, breathing, sleep cycles, cognition, temperature regulation, sexual development, metabolism, emotions, and of course, the hallmark symptom of Prader-Willi syndrome, hunger and satiety. All of these hormones in the body from wherever they're managed or released do not work properly. So these are the systems that are negatively impacted by that. We're going to look at a few symptoms that may impact your resident. She's going to have weaker muscle tone until she's upset about something, and then she's going to have very strong muscle tone. It's very ironic in people with Prader-Willi syndrome. Regardless, she's going to have problems with balance, coordination, and motor planning. So she's the one who may trip and fall going up or down things. Depth perception is often problematic. Abnormal growth, respiratory issues, cognitive limitations, and impaired judgment across the board. Of course, hyperphagia, which is just that medical term for a dysfunctional appetite regulating system. Metabolic issues, gastroenterological issues. We're going to look at these. It's slow emptying stomach, slow emptying bowel, and the lack of a vomit reflex, which we'll look at. Sorry about doing that in the morning. Temperature regulation dysfunction. There are irregularities in internal body temperature control. So especially today, when we're having a heat wave, she could become overheated very quickly, much more quickly than you could anticipate. She could also become too cold in cooler temperatures much more quickly than you might anticipate. So you're going to really need to watch for that. There could be a serious illness, infection, or illness present, and she may not have a fever at all. Right? Most people with syndrome have a low baseline temperature. So if ours is 98.6, hers might even be 97 as a baseline. But she may be seriously ill with an infection, and her baseline temperature may raise to maybe only 98 if it raises at all. So what that means, coupled with a high pain threshold, is that she doesn't feel pain. The brain doesn't recognize pain signals properly. So she could be seriously ill and she may not really feel all that bad. She might be a little irritable, she might be more tired or lethargic. She might, if there have been people who've broken their right leg and they've walked on it a couple of days, and then maybe later they might complain that their left leg doesn't feel so good. So there's some things really awry with the brain recognizing pain signals properly. So if she's overheated, she may not feel bad at all and not take off a jacket. Many people with Prader-Willi syndrome will be dripping sweat and they've got layers of clothing on and they're not taking them off. And when you say, do you want to take off your jacket? They'll say no, right? Or it's really cold and you say, oh, it's getting cold out here. Do you want to put on your jacket? No. So we have to manage those things in a different way. And we'll talk about that in the behavior part of this. Self-injurious behaviors. Almost everybody, some studies show up to 99% of people with Prader-Willi syndrome pick their skin, whether it's at their fingernails, in their ears, in their nose, in their whatever body orifice, including vaginal and anal. There are people who will pick. So if you've got this behavior, we'll help you work through how to strategize to a severe degree. We'll help you strategize that above and beyond what this training will provide. Dental problems can interfere with speech and language problems, but there's also articulation that's problems related to low muscle tone, but also motor planning issues that interfere with articulation, scoliosis and other orthopedic abnormalities. Disordered sleep is often a part of this syndrome, where even if she's going to bed at the same time every night, which would be a really good thing, and waking up at the same time, and it looks like she's sleeping, she may not be getting good restorative sleep. So if she's having more behavior issues during the day when all the environmental factors are accounted for or managed, then we may want to take a look at what's her sleep architecture like. I skipped over incomplete sexual development, because normally, when we're doing these trainings for adults, that ship has sailed, but she's 15. So just so you know, she's not going to push through puberty as her typically developing 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old peers would be doing. So there's the research is out on this, and as are recommendations are very varied on whether you induce a medical period, if she a menstrual cycle, if she doesn't have regular menses, if she's not able to manage well hygienically, maybe there's reasons not to do that. So we can talk about that at some future point if you want to address that. Temperament and behavior issues. If hyperphagia is a hallmark symptom of Prader-Willi syndrome, so are temperament and behavior issues. And that's why so much of this training is going to be focused on giving you strategies to manage those. Almost all the underlying behavioral issues you're going to see have a basic foundation in anxiety. Almost every Prader-Willi syndrome specialist will kind of say this is an anxiety-based disorder. Everything is going to peak anxiety. We'll talk about that. Lying and confabulation are symptoms of Prader-Willi syndrome for many people, but not all, particularly confabulation, where we're making up stories out of whole cloth. We bring this up because there have been a number of people with Prader-Willi syndrome who will make false allegations of abuse against parents, care providers, teachers, anybody in particularly a mandated reporting position. So if there's any history of this resident confabulating stories, making stories up for whatever reason, we probably want to work with you a little bit more about how you manage or address that. Hyperphagia, again, is that dysfunctional appetite regulating system. It is a physiological, neurochemical drive to eat or obtain food that lasts throughout the individual's lifetime. So the brain functions as if the body is starving, and it drives the individual to find or eat as much food as possible. So we're either going to be eating as much food in the moment as possible, or we're going to be taking food and squirreling it away and hiding it somewhere so we can eat it later. The brain tells the body to store the consumed food as fat, very different than the typically developing body. So we have a very special phenotype body composition for individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome that are different from typically developing individuals. The brain also tells the body to lower the metabolic rate to almost half what it should be in order to conserve energy. So unmanaged hyperphagia plus that very slow metabolic rate can cause rapid weight gain, the potential from premature death from a stomach rupture or a bowel rupture or a stomach necrotic tissue, developing dead tissue causing sepsis, or the same thing happening in the bowels, causing potential for death. Morbid obesity, and we see she's already got obesity, probably morbid obesity. And then when these things happen, we have increased behavior problems from access to food. So our whole goal is to reduce those behavior problems for you as you manage her health in general. Choking is one of the #1 causes of death in people with Prader-Willi syndrome, not only because they're trying to, many people are trying to eat food fast because they know they're not supposed to, but then you've got decreased sensory issues going on in the mouth, and we don't understand how full our mouth is. We have problems with motor coordination, motor planning, so we're not swallowing and breathing properly, and we will see some in a moment. We've also got some structural issues going on in the that can contribute to aspiration and choking. Death can occur from a single food access incident. This individual is heavier, so that means she's had too much food or the wrong types of foods, and so we're really going to be helping you manage changing that diet for her. But it is important that you know death can occur from a single access incident. No known medication treats Prader-Willi syndrome's hyperphagic food drive. It doesn't exist. There's research going on throughout the world trying to find a medication that will reduce the hyperphagia food drive, much less control it. But right now, it doesn't exist. No known appetite suppressant that works in you and I is effective in anybody with Prader-Willi syndrome. And there's no teaching the individual not to take food. Somebody might look like they know not to take food because she does know not to take food that's not authorized to her. But given a period of where she believes even that she's not supervised, her brain will override and she will take food. That is the symptom of the syndrome. So current treatment of hyperphagia, the protocol around the world is 24/7, 365 days of the year supervision and adherence to what's called the principles of food security. We'll look at those. Nobody known to be diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome can ever live successfully independently. Those who have tried have either become morbidly obese and returned to some type of a supported living setting, or they've died. So for the duration of this individual's lifetime, she's going to be living in some kind of foster care home, group home setting, or some Prader-Willi syndrome trained designated residential setting. Prader-Willi syndrome is not an eating disorder. An eating disorder is a psychological psychiatric disorder that is very amenable to treatment and psychiatric interventions and medications. Prader-Willi syndrome is a genetically based medical disorder, and there is no treatment for this symptom. There is management only of the hyperphagia symptom, and that is 24/7 supervision. The vomit reflex is absent. So this complicates hyperphagia so that if she's eating she's consuming poisonous food or rotten food or her body, or too much food, her body is not going to whoops it up. Like if you and I drink too much alcohol, right? The brain sees that as a poison. And so the central nervous system says, well, let's get it out of there right away. That central nervous system is not working properly in people with Prader-Willi syndrome, and it affects the vomit reflex. So this individual, if she's vomiting, could signal a very life-threatening situation. You're not going to give her some type of emetic that induces vomiting to get the poisonous substance out, because that is going to be increasing the toxins in her system. So what you're going to be doing instead, if she is vomiting, is preparing for an ER visit. and we'll look at this a little bit more too. The stomach empties too slowly. It's called gastroparesis. And so we never administer Pepto-Bismol if she's got an upset tummy or anything of that nature, because Pepto-Bismol and similar meds slow stomach emptying. And that's why they work so well. But we never want to give Pepto-Bismol. This could be deadly. We want you to modify her diet. So, and we'll be talking about that, so that maybe you're not giving things that are much harder to digest during the evening hours. You're like raw vegetables, but you're during her evening meal, you're doing more cooked vegetables, steamed vegetables, that she's getting those nutrition benefits from and low calorie benefits from, but her stomach isn't slowed down by trying to metabolize those raw vegetables. Just like the stomach empties too slowly, so does the bowel. So people have lots of constipation issues. They're constantly, chronically constipated, because if stool stays in the colon too long, because it's not, the poop isn't emptied out of the colon every time we go to the bathroom, right? When you and I go to the bathroom and go poop, we empty out our colon pretty much, right? It's gone. That doesn't happen with people with Prader-Willi syndrome. The poop that comes out is being pushed down by new poop coming down the pike. And so people with Prader-Willi syndrome generally feel chronically constipated because the stool gets really dry in there and it's even harder to get out. So we use Miralax. It's a powder additive prophylactically to keep the stool wet and slippery so that the poop kind of slides out more easily. Bowel emptying issues are pretty problematic. The thing about chronic constipation is when you've got a really bad case of chronic constipation, diarrhea occurs, because the new liquid stool, the stool that then forms into a nice poop roll, is leaking around the blocked area in the bowel. And so lots of people will want to give Imodium or something to treat diarrhea. We never want you to give Imodium, because Imodium slows down bowel emptying, and that could be deadly, right? We've got a blockage now, just like in the stomach, a blockage in the bowel or a blockage in the stomach, but new food or new stool is coming in. And so the things have nowhere to go but out, out, out. And that's going to either rupture the stomach or the bowel, or it's going to cause the tissue to squeeze really hard and against the walls and then cause that tissue to die. That's a deadly situation. So never give Imodium or similar med. That epiglottis is faulty, so it doesn't really close properly. For small studies have shown 10 out of 10 people with Prader-Willi syndrome have this irregularity. So we want you to, where food or liquid can, instead of the epiglottis closing so that the food and liquid goes into the stomach area, it doesn't close all the way. And so the food or liquid can go into the lung area, causing aspiration, choking, pneumonia, and potentially death. This is doesn't happen frequently, so I don't want you to panic. But one of the things that are recommended is that we always cut up her meats and all food into smaller pieces. If she's able to cut her own food, great. Just have her to cut it up into small pieces. We never want her to be eating all by herself, anyway, but for safety purposes, because she could choke and you may need to do the Heimlich, And so you definitely want to be there monitoring while she's eating. And then sips of liquid is recommended during meals so that she's swallowing everything properly. Although sips of liquid can go into the lungs as well. There's just no treatment for this. There's a booklet that's called the Medical Alert. And I will email that to you guys so that you have it on hand. What I'll email you is a 5x7, right? I don't have the Medical Alert that's really, kind of pocketbook size. We recommend that you keep this on your person or in your vehicle at all times, because if she has an issue and you need to go to the ER or a clinic, emergency clinic, you're going to tell them she has Prader-Willi syndrome, and they're going to do their steps of determining what is her level of need of care, right? And so what are the first thing they're going to do? They're going to take her temperature to see if she's seriously ill or has an infection. She may have 0 temperature and have a major infection. The second thing they're going to do is they're going to ask her to rate her pain. She's not a reliable rater of her own pain, and the pain signals don't work properly. So, and they're not going to believe that she doesn't have she may not have a fever even if she's seriously ill, because this is a rare disorder. These are not medical professionals, probably in any ER situation, who are going to know right off the top of their head about Prader-Willi syndrome. So this Medical Alert booklet that I'm going to be emailing you is just substantiation, because it talks about these issues so that they'll take you very seriously and get her be seen much more quickly than normal. Make myself a note to get you that Medical Alert booklet. So the hyperphagia food drive underlies a lot of maladaptive behaviors, right? That's constant. How do I get food from you? So I'm going to have behaviors to try to get it. But there are a multitude of neurological issues that contribute to unwanted behaviors as well. Anxiety, again, is at the base of those. Almost everybody with Prader-Willi syndrome has those high levels of anxiety, which is an unrealistic view of problems or worries or fears feeling out of control. Some of them may be realistic, but many are unrealistic or too heightened. And even if she's, humming along just fine, that anxiety is lurking just below the surface, so that if anything is just not quite the way she thought it was going to be or should be, her anxiety is touched, and that could set off a maladaptive behavior. So anxiety can be the cause of maladaptive behaviors that look like arguing and defiance, verbal or physical aggression, repeated questions, excessive talking, elopement, running away, or skin picking. I don't know if this resident has any or all of these, but these are common, maybe not all of them, but common for individuals to have. So if you see any of these behaviors, your first thought is, uh-oh, she's feeling anxious. I need to help reduce that anxiety. And there are very specific ways that we're going to be teaching you how to do that. So anxiety has the potential to cause a behavior problem where none would have existed before. Every single person in her environment is a potential stressor, right? She could be humming along, and then I walk in the room and I say something that causes her to have a behavior problem. So it means every single person she interacts with has that potential to cause a behavior problem. What that also means is that every single person in her environment has the potential to reduce or reverse a behavior problem. And that's what we're going to be working on. There's always a precipitating event or a trigger or a reason for a behavioral incident. Even if we have no idea what it is, even if the meltdown seems to come out of nowhere, even if the reason doesn't make any sense to you, it makes sense to her why she's exhibiting this behavior. So we want you to think ahead and we're going to be teaching you to do that, to identify potential stressors that may cause her to feel anxiety or be misinterpreted by her in some way, or present some chance that she could be disappointed. Because if you can eliminate or reduce or manage these in some way, you will have reduced or eliminated the potential for her to have a behavior problem. And that's our goal, is to teach you, because you're key to her anxiety and its reduction and management. That's my son, by the way, a few years ago. He has Prader-Willi syndrome. So now we're going to be looking at the top 10 Prader-Willi syndrome behavior management strategies that are in our toolkit. These strategies are not just specific to people with Prader-Willi syndrome. These are strategies that you'll find helpful with all of your own kids and any other foster kids that you ever serve in the future. If you don't do these strategies with typically developing kids or other people with developmental disabilities, you could get away with things and be just fine. But if you don't do these with your resident, that your foster child who has Prader-Willi syndrome, you will not be fine. You will not be okay. You will be seeing chronic behavioral incidents popping up all over the place. So these are the top 10 ways that when you master these, life is going to be so much better for you, which means it's going to be so much better for her. So the very first strategy we have is, how do we manage the environment for somebody who's got Prader-Willi syndrome? And we do, so these are called the environmental basics: food security, routines, rules, boundaries, and calm responses from you. We'll look at each of these very quickly. Environment, the environment in which she's living affects everything. Everything affects her, whether she's interacting, everything is going to be affecting her. Turn this off. So we want you to be aware of that. The physical setting, right? If she's in a setting where the food isn't restricted, her access to that food isn't restricted, that's going to be a trigger for behavior problems. So that's an example of the physical setting. And the people with whom she's interacting is the other critical component. Before, when Kedra gave just a beautiful example of an interaction that she had with Aria, what she did was an example of what we want everybody in her environment to do, right? Is model things for her, give her the verbiage for these things, redirect her, support her. This is going to create a very strong bond between Aria and those individuals who do this well. And I'm not saying that's going to eliminate behavioral incidents between the two, but it's going to significantly increase Aria's feeling of security and safeness, and then manage her body better. The next principle we're going to be looking at is the principles of food security. This is in the environment, right? So the first principle of food security is no doubt. She has no doubt whatsoever, because you're going to be creating this for her when her next meal or snack is coming. Plus, she has no hope or chance to get extra food or unauthorized food, and she knows this. Therefore, she's not going to be disappointed that she didn't get extra or unauthorized food. And no disappointment means no behavior problems. When everything is going well for Aria, there will be no behavior problems, right? That's our goal. No doubt is achieved by establishing consistent routines for food consumption. So when you're going to be serving food throughout the day, is going to have to be the same every single day, every single day of the year that she lives with you, right? So we're not talking about it exactly 7:35, she has breakfast. What we're talking about is in the morning after she gets up and does whatever, hygiene or other chores you want to establish in her routine. After she does those, then she has breakfast. And then 2.5 to 3 hours after that, she'll have morning snack. And then 2.5 to 3 hours after that, she'll have lunch, and then an afternoon snack, and then supper. Now, we say 2.5 to 3 hours intervals of food because generally what we found is people with Prader-Willi syndrome can pretty much manage that hyperphagia drive for about up to 3 hours before they start really feeling asking for more food. Now, some people will ask for more food 10 minutes after they've eaten. That this isn't to reduce that happening. It's just that we've noticed that this is probably the sweet spot for a lot of people. Now, you don't have to. So let me give you an example. We say, whatever routine you establish, you stick with that routine, right? In our family, in many families, it's breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, supper. Breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, supper. Because that kind of also replicates when the child is in school. Breakfast at home, morning snack is at school generally, lunch is at school generally. Then when they get home from school, they have a snack, and then you have supper, right? Done for the day. But right now, my son goes breakfast, lunch, supper, right? And there are a lot of people who can do that now, breakfast, lunch, supper. But whatever you do, you stick to that routine. That is the routine. It isn't that you can do, some days we just do breakfast and then lunch, and other days we give a morning snack. That is a breach of food security. You'll see why in a bit. So scheduled food must be as reliable as breathing air to this resident because this is her syndrome. Never use food as a reward. Oh, Aria, what a great job you did putting away all your toys. You get an extra pudding for dessert tonight. No. Aria, never use food as a bribe. Aria, if you put your toys away, we'll get you a dessert tonight. No. Never withhold food for poor behavior. Oh, Aria, you did not put your toys away when you were supposed to, so you will not be getting dessert today. No. This will backfire on you every day of the week. Scheduled food must be as reliable as breathing air. It doesn't matter what her behavior is. It's the same schedule for food. You can pause the food schedule, though, until a requested task is completed. For example, if you've established the routine or the rule that when you get up in the morning, you take a shower, and then you come down for breakfast, then you can absolutely hold firm to after your shower, then you can have breakfast. I want breakfast now. I know you want breakfast now. You hungry? I bet you're hungry, right? Yeah. And after your shower, then you get breakfast. And then you can talk about breakfast for a minute, but you stick to after shower, then breakfast. So you put a hold on it. You don't progress through the day. You pause the food schedule until this is accomplished. Now, there's lots of caveats to doing this, pausing the food schedule. So we can talk about that. The other thing is if somebody is crying or yelling or screaming and it's time for them to eat, you can pause the food schedule to say, honey, it's not safe for you to eat while you're crying or yelling. So as soon as you calm your body, then we'll serve you your lunch. You can absolutely do that too. No hope or chance is the next principle. No doubt when food is going to be happening, no hope or chance to get extra food. This is the hardest one to implement, especially in a home where there are multiple children. And I know I saw a little younger guy in there, and I don't know who else is living in the home. But this is where you're probably going to have a bigger challenge. Access to food creates hope is our mantra here. Hope creates anxiety. Anxiety creates the potential for unwanted behaviors. If food is available, if this individual believes she can get food, whether she can see it, whether other people are eating, and she's not, then she can do little else but anxiously think of ways to get that food. So we need to eliminate her access to food in order to reduce her anxiety and behavior problems. How do we do that? You've got to lock your refrigerator. You've got to lock your food pantry. You've got to lock your medicine cabinet. If you've got some Flintstones chewable vitamins in there, that's food to her. You've got to lock away your soda because that's food to her. You've got to lock away your money because if she's out in the community, that's food to her. Or even if she's not out in the community, that's food to her. No one should eat in, not that she's going to eat money, I'm sorry. It's that she knows that money will buy food, just so I'm clear. No one should eat food in front of the individual with Prader-Willi syndrome if food is not also available to her. This is hard to do when there are other kids that want to eat and should be able to eat when they say, I'm hungry, right? But no one should eat in front of her when food is not also available to her. And it isn't just that you can send them to the other room to eat, right? Just take your sandwich and go to the other room to eat. If Aria knows they just walked in the other room to eat that sandwich, that piques her anxiety. So that's a critical component to this syndrome. Establish the rule for the type or quantity of food before attending any outings. Like if you're ever going to a restaurant, we want you to have gone through the restaurant menu, give her her 2 choices of foods that she'd like to order when she gets to the restaurant. We'll look at this a little bit better, but do everything before you go on an outing to reduce behavior problems. We want you to put a lock on the thought that she has that food, extra food, is available to her. And you are never going to give into a tantrum, especially for food. If she's saying, oh, can I have some carrots? I want some carrots. Maybe you're making supper and you're chopping up carrots and it's not time for her snack and it's not time for supper. You're just preparing food. Can I have carrots? Can I have carrots? Can I have carrots? You might think, oh my God, she's just, no, honey, no, we're going to show you a lot of goofs. No, honey, no, honey, no, honey. Pardon me. But she's tantruming and you think, what harm could carrots do? Right? Of course, yes, you can have a carrot. Go sit down and have your carrots. What you've done is given into a tantrum. And if you give into a tantrum, you have taught her what to do next time. And we're going to look at this in a moment. If you see that she has gotten a hold of food, you're not going to say, did you eat those chips? That sets her up for failure. It sets her up to lie to you. It sets her up to feel anxious because she may not want to lie to you, but she doesn't want to get in trouble. And she knows she's not supposed to eat extra food. So anxiety, now you have behavior problems potentially. Rather, you're going to presume the food was eaten and you just state it as a fact, non-accusatory, just state it as a fact. Oh boy, I see those chips are gone. You need to take responsibility for her gaining access to that food. Remember, her brain is driven to get food. This is her disability. So we can't blame her for doing it. This is our job as her care providers to make sure she's safe within her syndrome or safe from her syndrome, actually. So you'll let her know, I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. So you stay safe and then you secure that food source. So you make sure that doesn't happen again. And then without her knowing, you're going to be reducing calories for the rest of the day or for the rest of the week, depending upon how many consumed calories she got, right? Extra calories she got. Remember, I told you the metabolic rate is about half. It's almost half what it should be. What that means is individuals, all individuals with Prader-Willi syndrome will gain weight on more than 2 healthy fruits a day. So if she eats, say, 2 apples a day, she may be able to maintain her weight. But if she eats 3 apples and no other unauthorized food, she will gain weight. This is how sensitive the weight metabolism is in Prader-Willi syndrome. So you can imagine how much weight she's going to gain with a few extra things here, a few extra things there, or calories that are kind of empty calories, non-nutritive calories, or even nutritive calories that are far too more than her body can manage. So just so you know, we're going to share a few insights about what can be very helpful with for providers. It's often all about quantity. People with Prader-Willi syndrome are very concrete thinking. So when I said before food equals money, that's a concrete thinking when I clarified it, because I'm telling you she's not going to eat food. But people with Prader-Willi syndrome think concretely. So if I say to them, food is money, they're probably going to eat that because they think concretely. But here's an example of where we use that concrete thinking to our advantage. Use a smaller plate and cut up the food into smaller pieces so that it fills out the plate and it gives the illusion of a lot more food. Now, because you have other kids in the house, do not make the mistake of giving them a larger size plate and then thinking you're going to be, utilizing this food security insight by giving Aria a smaller size plate. Everybody should have the same size plate. And if you can have everybody have the smaller plate, all the better. Break chips apart, cut things up into smaller pieces, because 5 chips in a baggie can look like 25 chips in a baggie. And that will be more appetizing. It's not going to fill, no amount of food is going to fill her up. It isn't like she's going to be, one more chip. If I can just give her one more chip, that will help her feel more full. No amount of food will, there is no feeling of fullness, no matter how much food is eaten. None. Higher cognitive abilities and verbal skills don't mean she's going to be able to override her brain's drive to get food. Likewise, even if she's very intellectually challenged, she can be brilliant at thinking up multi-step ways to get food. It's kind of a savant skill, though it doesn't really generalize into other areas of her life. Even the most honest person with Prader-Willi syndrome may lie, cheat, or steal when it comes to food. This is just a symptom of the syndrome. And behavior problems are often related to unsecured food sources somewhere. And once you find where that unsecured food source is, and then lock that down, get rid of that food source, then behavior tends to improve everywhere else. Don't remove food. Actually, don't remove anything out of her hands. Don't take it out of her hands unless it's dangerous, of course. And then you have to do what you have to do, because otherwise she's going to have a behavior outburst if you take anything out of her hands. But if it's dangerous or poisonous, you got to do what you got to do. Environmental basic routines are very, very important, not only for all kids, but especially for kids with Prader-Willi syndrome, because they reduce anxiety by creating predictability and sameness and consistency. So create routines in her environment, bedtime, wake up time, meals, snacks, household chores. It's really important that she have that sense of she has responsibilities as part of this family unit to participate in household chores. She's an important member of this household. You do want to create visuals because it's harder for her to think abstractly because of that concrete thinking. So put them in charts, write them down, especially to avoid arguments, right? If one of your household chores is that every Tuesday she has to take the trash, you may not want to do that, the recycle bin that doesn't have food in it to the street, then write that down on a calendar. And if you say, hey, it's time for you to take the recycle bins to the street, and she says, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. That's a power struggle, right? But if you say, oh, you don't think today's Tuesday, huh? Okay, well, so now you can refer to the calendar or the written chart And usually if it's in writing, you don't have an argument anymore. Provide advance notice about changes that's appropriate to her. So you don't stir up too much anxiety by giving too much advance notice, or stir up anxiety by springing on and not giving enough advance notice. Knowing the rules, our next environmental basic, helps her obtain success. So it helps her understand what her role is, and it helps reduce anxiety. It knows rules aren't to be punitive, but they're meant to give her, these are the things that happen, and these are the rules that we do, right? After you use the bathroom, you wash your hands. That's the rule. First, after you get up in the morning, you make your bed. That's the rule, etc. When something's understood as a rule, it's more likely to be followed, especially if in the beginnings times of her moving in here, you kind of create the rules with her, right? So, for example, one of the rules you might create with her is to talk about yelling. So it wouldn't be very nice if the other people in the house yelled at you, would it, Aria? She's going to say no. Yeah. So do you think that should be a rule that we make in this house, that nobody should yell at you, Aria? Yes, she's going to say, no doubt, right? So then now you introduce, okay, so the rule is no one should yell at Aria. And then Aria, if other people are following this rule, I'm thinking we should probably have the rule that we don't have any yelling at all, right? So that Aria won't yell at anybody else either, right? Do you think that could be a reasonable rule? And if you're establishing that rule with her, she's more likely to follow it. Now, just because you make rules does not mean she's never going to break them. But when you've established the rule and then you write it down and you post it somewhere, it's more likely to be followed. And then you've got to establish the rule. You get to change the rule if necessary. Boundaries are critically important to this young lady. This also is a fundamental piece of this. She needs to know her role, her boundary in relation to other members in her household, right? This reduces her anxiety. She needs to know her behavioral boundaries. So even though, like every child and adolescent, she's going to be pushing those boundaries, once she knows she's hit the boundary, then that's going to keep her feeling safe and secure. If she has a temper behavior problem that brings her outside those boundaries, she's feeling out of control and very anxious. That's why she's having a behavior issue, or she's tantruming to get something. In which case, if you give in to her tantrum, then you've pushed her outside of those boundaries, and now she will feel more anxious. So we want you to kind of think about these boundaries as buoys around her behavior, so that she is feeling more secure and safe. The goal for every care provider in this house is for you to be the authority, right? We need to do it, not authoritarian, because authoritarian styles inherently remove control from the individual. Do it because I said so. They have no control. And they activate Prader-Willi syndrome's neurochemical oppositional defiant tendencies. But authoritative styles don't do that, right? So you're going to be that authoritative person, so that she feels safe with you and can try new behaviors that are socially appropriate, etc. Just again, what Kedra did earlier, which was you ask her, meaning me, what's your name? Kedra was the authority, kind of sharing, you ask her, what's your name? And then Aria responded so beautifully to that authority that felt so safe. Uphold your boundaries very gently, but very firmly and with great empathy. We'll talk about empathy in a minute. Stick to your boundaries, give time limits, rules, routines, permissible language, permissible behaviors, turn these into rules and boundary them. Don't repeat your requests for things more than 3 times, right? Like with any kid, if they keep asking you and you know, or you keep, let's do it this way, is where it generally goes. Pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper. Pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper. Pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper. If you've asked it 3 times and they haven't done it, they're turning you out on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th time. Your words are meaningless. Honey, will you please pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper? Honey, I've asked you once already. Can you please pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper? Uh-oh, it looks like you need help on the 3rd time to pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper. So then you will calmly move your body toward the individual to help them do that, right? We're not, you know what I mean. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't promise to do anything that you don't intend to follow through on, because now if you don't, you're breaching your own authority. Don't lie to try to get out of a situation. Lots of us parents who have kids with Prader-Willi syndrome we know our kid can hear a wrapper being unwrapped from, 500 yards away, or they can smell food, 3 doors down. So if you're eating a chocolate bar and your loved one says, "Are you eating a chocolate bar?" Don't lie and say no. Say, "Yes, I am eating a chocolate bar. Is that bothering you, honey? I apologize if that's bothering you," right? And then eat it somewhere else. Don't remove a privilege. Don't take something away, because this does not increase cooperation. Pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper, or you're going to lose TV privileges tonight. That is probably not going, you could try it, but it's probably not going to get Aria to immediately pick up her clothes and put them in the hamper. Now the argument or the behavior is going to be shifting to, don't remove my TV privileges. Don't take that away from me. And no matter what you do, now you're on a power struggle and a behavior about the removal of privileges rather than the original intent that you had to get her to pick up her clothes. Instead, you're going to be using lots and lots of positive reinforcers constantly. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated. If she believes, people with Prader-Willi syndrome, I don't care what the age is, they are really often, almost everybody is really good at manipulating and power struggling. And so if you give in to their manipulation, then they feel like they got away with it. They manipulated you. They are more powerful than you. Therefore, you're not providing the authoritative, barrier to secure them and help them feel safe. They're above you. Now their anxiety spikes. So now we have increased anxiety has the potential to increase behavior problems, right? So now we have a big, so don't be manipulated. If you notice you just got manipulated, right? Then you want to say to yourself and to the individual, "Oh my goodness, you snookered me. I know better now, so you're not going to be able to snooker me again in the future." Use humor in that way, potentially. Calm responses are absolutely critical. You're a foster care family. I don't get the vibe from you that you're going to be yelling, but that it happens to the best of us, right? People with Prader-Willi syndrome, like lots of kids, but particularly people with Prader-Willi syndrome, can really, they're really masterful at picking our weak spots and digging at them. So watch your own responses. We tag team a lot. We teach tag teaming a lot. If you notice you're getting really upset and you're not going to be able to be patient, like grandma's really patient, Kenya, that patience is going to take you far. But if you notice I'm losing my last patience, she's on my last nerve, then tag out. Let somebody else come in and help intervene, or start breathing yourself to calming yourself. If she ever says to you, "Leave me alone," she may be telling you, "I'm overwhelmed, and if you don't stop, I might be physically aggressive with you." I don't know this resident, so I don't know her history of physical aggression. But if you hear her say, "Leave me alone," back up. Don't say anything anymore Don't talk to her. Don't give her eye contact. Keep her in your peripheral vision. So you're keeping her safe, but let her cool down. I've noticed a lot of people with the syndrome will say, leave me alone, right before they explode physically. So don't be in that position where you could get hurt. Lots of people with Prader-Willi syndrome like drama. We want you to respond to the tantrum for something, any unwanted behavior other than skin picking. We want you to respond with kind of boredom. Like, it doesn't matter to me whether you're lying on the ground and screaming and wailing because it's not time for snack yet, or we're not going to take you to the store to buy your Barbie now. We're going to the store tomorrow and you're having a tantrum to get the Barbie. It doesn't matter how you can lie on the floor and scream and yell, honey. Doesn't matter to me. Read a book, engage in something else. Don't give in to that behavior. Ignore it, keeping her in your peripheral vision. Do know that lying to avoid blame or to gain an audience or to make up stories, again, are common symptoms of Prader-Willi syndrome, though not everybody has them. And you want to be mindful of if she does have this symptom. Let's talk about how you might manage any false allegations of or storytelling, particularly. Not a lot of people do false allegations, but when it happens, it's very problematic, especially in a mandated reporting setting. Remember, I said, don't give in to a temper tantrum because you'll have a world of hurt on your hands. If you give into a temper tantrum, a manipulative ploy to give them what they want, to give her what she wants, all you've taught her is all she needs to do next time is yell louder, be more aggressive, wait you out longer, and eventually you'll give in. So giving in over a little thing today, oh, what could giving her some extra carrots hurt, right? It hurts because she's going to tantrum louder next time for those carrots or whatever it is. And so the overall quality of life depends upon not giving in today, maintaining your boundaries that you've established as limits. So don't give in to a temper tantrum. Here's just some cartoony examples of no eye contact, really keeping people in your periphery because they're going to try to get in your face so that you can give her what she wants. There's a physician's note. I'll email that to you as well. This is really for the service provider. It's documentation that shows what symptoms this individual has signed off by the physician, so that if she's going to school, say, and we want to make sure she gets an aide monitoring her so she doesn't access extra food, you can just show them the physician's note. It's documentation from the physician that says she must have an aide or she must have supervision, etc. I'll get you the physician's note too. It's a free thing. Now, all of this information was just managing the environment. Now we're going to go quickly to managing neurological issues, neurocognitive issues, and at the base of managing all of those, and these are specific behavior management strategies as well, at the base of all of them is empathy as an intervention. So empathy is the ability to see another person's perspective, to understand and share the feelings of another. Most people with Prader-Willi syndrome, because of neurocognitive deficits, don't have the ability to see things from another person's perspective. So we as care providers have to see things from her perspective in order to manage our interactions with her. It's a very powerful and critical intervention. And Robin's already seen how effective genuine empathy is with this young lady. So here, I love this cartoon because here we have Kedra. She's got Prader-Willi syndrome and she says it's a 9. And here you are, provider, on the other side, and you're seeing the situation as a 6. No, it's a 9, she says. Well, no, honey, it's a 6. Well, no, it's a 9. Well, honey, this is why it's a 6. No, it's a 9. No matter how you couch it, you are in a power struggle, right? Until you see why she keeps saying it's a 9, now you can understand why she sees it a 9. Now you can develop strategies that help her see that this situation is a 6, right? So at its most basic form, an empathetic response is simply repeating the exact words that she's using. It's a 9. Oh, you think it's a 9. Oh, I understand you think it's a 9. I get it. You think it's a 9. What a bummer. You want it to be a 9. I get it. What a disappointment. It's not a 9. That's not fair. It's not a 9. All of these catchphrases or words get to the heart of empathy because it gets right to her seeing you understand it from her perspective. It's not agreeing with her, it's not disagreeing with her, and it's not giving in to her. It's simply communicating that you understand her want, her need, her perspective, her concern, etc. And once she feels like you understand that, she typically doesn't need to turn the volume up of her upset to get you to understand that, right? So we want you to get into the mindset of her perspective, understand it from her perspective, and talk about it from her perspective. That's just awful that you think that it's a 9. It's just terrible. Oh my gosh, this must be awful for you. Genuine empathy doesn't make things worse. So don't be afraid to go down the rabbit hole with her, because it really isn't a rabbit hole. It's the base from which she feels like, you understand why I'm so upset, right? So if you're saying, well, honey, I understand that you want it to be a 9, but it can't be a 9 today, but it'll be a 9 tomorrow. If you're not met with, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, then go immediately to empathy, because you will not make things better by trying to find brilliant ways of convincing her that she's not correct, because she's just going to be hearing you say she's wrong. And people with Prader-Willi syndrome cannot be wrong. So understand it from her perspective to get out of those escalating behaviors. Don't try to talk her out of her upset, right? Honey, if just kind of what I said a moment ago, if your offer of comfort, well, it's okay, honey, the library is closed today, even though we wanted to go, but the library is closed today, so we'll go tomorrow. If it's not, oh, okay, then immediately go to empathy. What a bummer the library is closed today. You wanted to go to the library, didn't you? You had your heart set on it. And do you know what book you were going to get? What a bummer, right? What a bummer. Stay with that until you see her behavior dropping. Yes, that's a real bummer. That's not fair. You're right. That's not fair. Now, when you see her behavior reducing, you can get into, well, do you think we could go to the library? Do you think we could call and see if library is open tomorrow? Or do you think we could go to somewhere else to look for that book? So you're starting to open up and collaboratively problem solve with her. Don't use logic and reasoning with her, because she's a concrete thinker, and you can think of a billion different brilliant ways to convince her that, well, we can't go to the library today, honey, because it's closed. That's very logical, but she doesn't think logically. So if you say, well, honey, we can't go to the library, it's closed. Well, we can walk in, the back door is always open. They always keep the back door open. Well, no, they don't, honey, because, the library is closed, so they're not going to keep the back door. You're thinking logically, she's not. So all she hears you telling her is, no, Aria, you're wrong. The back door is not going to be open. So don't go there. Go with empathy. Oh, what a bummer. You think the back door could be open. And I'm pretty sure the back door is going to be locked up and closed. Wow, what do you think we could figure out? How could we get around this? You think we could? Okay, so now you can think of strategies. The whole point is to avoid a behavior problem. I don't care how long it takes. You're not going to care how long it takes. as long as you're avoiding a behavior problem. Don't engage in a power struggle. So if she keeps saying the back door is open, the back door is open, the back door is open, you know what, honey, I hear you. You think the back door is open. Yeah. So I'm going to say one more time, I know the back door is closed. And then we could go to Target, or we could go to, you know, Walgreens or something to go get your book. Which would you prefer to do? You let me know, but I'm not going to talk about the back door being open anymore. Now you talk about what you would like to talk about, and you have the last word, right? And then stop talking. Just let her have the last word. And then don't talk about it with her anymore. Don't argue with her. You can't win. You're constrained by logic and reasoning, and she's not. So just use empathy. Distraction after empathy can be really effective, right? So I know you want to go to the library and you think that back door is open, and you know, I'm pretty sure it's not, honey, and we're going to be really disappointed. And you know what? I was just thinking that that Walmart has books on sale today. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. Distraction. Paint the picture is our next intervention. And what this is designed to reduce her anxiety, because you're letting her know what to expect when she walks into a new situation, especially when you're going anywhere, when you're, you know, everything. We want you to paint the picture of what it's going to look like, especially community outings, especially going to a shopping mall or a store or some kind of excursion, restaurants for sure. You want to paint the picture, have all the details figured out before you go. That's going to reduce anxiety. If you're bringing in any new staff people, if you hire any staff people, if there's anybody coming into the home, be sure you paint the picture for her that day, especially, that this is going to happen, so that she's not, her anxiety isn't increased if she turns around and sees somebody new entering the house, or the doorbell rings and she doesn't know who's coming. And do find the right spot for giving her those heads up about things. Anticipate that what you do or what happens this time, she will expect to occur next time, and that disappointment is going to occur if it doesn't happen unless you fix it first, which brings us to our next intervention: fix a past goof. Anything that's occurred in the past is expected to occur in the future. So if something occurred in the past that needs to be fixed because it's not going to occur this time, or you don't want it to, or if something happened last time that you don't want to happen again, you're going to fix that past goof by painting a new picture with her and creating appropriate future expectations. So that's going to sound like, hey, remember the last time we went to the library, and when you left, the librarian gave you a lollipop? Bring up that issue. Next, incorporate empathy. That was a pretty good lollipop, wasn't it? Yeah, that was really delicious. Then preface the fix by letting the benefit to the individual be known, right? But we always want to do what's best for you because we really care about you a lot. Then introduce the fix. So this time, when we leave the library, we are not going to get a lollipop. Actually, I don't think they're even going to be giving away lollipops this time. And that's going to be much better and much healthier for you. Okay. So use those guidelines to help you. So as an example of a fix the past goof dialogue, say you're a new staff. Actually, you all are, right? At your very first outing to the mall, you wanted to make a great first impression on her. So you let everybody order in the home, order a chocolate covered banana because bananas are healthy. So you know now that the individual in your care really should not have a chocolate covered banana at all, right? How do you fix this past goof? Well, the dialogue might sound like this. Remember the last time we went to the mall and I let you have a chocolate covered banana? It was pretty delicious, wasn't it? Yeah, that must have been a really big surprise that I did that. But I made a big goof, didn't I? I didn't know that chocolate covered bananas really aren't healthy for you guys. So this time, when we go to the mall, we're not going to have a chocolate covered banana. We're going to get something else healthy though, right? So this time when we go, you're going to be able to choose between a strawberry frozen yogurt cup or a blueberry frozen yogurt cup, okay? Or something like that. Our next intervention is the preferred choices win-win. So Prader-Willi syndrome causes oppositionalism, as I said. The brain's automatic reaction is typically to respond with oppositional, defiant, argumentative behaviors. So we want you to avoid yes, no questions and instead offer preferred choice win-win options to reduce her oppositionalism and improve her cooperation. Make everything her choice between your preferred win-win options, because you'll be giving her the experience of control, but not too much actual control. So the experience of control is within boundaries. Actual, too much actual control is outside those buoy boundaries. So things like, do you want to wear the red jacket or the blue jacket? Do you want to wear your jacket or carry your jacket? Are you going to clean up now or at the next commercial? Right? Do you want to take your shower in 5 minutes or 7 minutes? Even though this resident probably has no concept of time because that's abstract, giving those boundaries of time can still work to your advantage. I also want to share with you, you can do things like, hey, do you want Cheerios or Cheerios for breakfast? Because I goofed and I didn't buy total cereal. So do you want Cheerios or Cheerios for breakfast? Even that can be a choice. And you can do it kind of tongue in cheek, but you're still giving the experience of choice. Yeah. Open-ended questions can be very difficult for many people with Prader-Willi syndrome to process, and then that creates anxiety. So don't say, what do you want for breakfast? Because one, it's an open-ended, anxiety-provoking question, because I don't know what are my options? I don't know. Plus, it also gives the experience of anything she says is an option, right? I want blueberry pancakes with syrup. Well, no, honey, that's not an option. Now you have a disappointment, and anything that leads to disappointment could lead to a behavior problem. So, do you want cereal or eggs for breakfast? Oh, you want eggs? Okay. Do you want them scrambled or poached? Okay. Avoid ambiguity, like we'll see maybe later. These are pretty vague and could create anxiety. So if you don't know, just say, I don't know. I'll let you know as soon as I do. Avoid hurrying with your words because it could pique oppositionalism. Hurry up, hurry up. You want me to hurry? Watch how slow I can go. Instead, use music. Do you think you can get dressed before the song stops or before the commercial stops or games, right? I bet you I can beat you to the door before you get there. With my son, when he was much younger, I would say, oh gosh, Cameron, mommy goofed. We really need to hurry because I totally goofed and I don't want to be late to the doctor's appointment. So we got to move fast, right? And I used to be goofy. And even now, he's 23 years old. If I go into the he gets a big smile on his face, and it kind of deactivates that oppositionalism potentially that he still has because he has Prader-Willi syndrome, and it helps him hurry a little bit more. Allow lots of time to process past the brain's oppositionalism. We want you to build in extra time wherever you go. For most of us, if we are feeling a time pressure ourselves and we're more anxious, we're not going to be patient, Kenya. We want you to build in extra time so that you can use the patience that you have in order to get to where you need to be on time. If this person has obsessive compulsive tendencies, you can use preferred choices as a way to manage that, right? If you want 1 or 5 or 10 of those. And this is an option for managing that collecting or hoarding behavior if she has that. If this individual has a history of stealing, you're going to want to pay special attention to that. We'll talk with you about how you can manage that in the community setting, in the home setting, if she has a history of stealing other people's things in the family home. Our next intervention is disguise your nose. Anything that looks, sounds, or smells like a frustrator could lead to a behavior problem. So the word no and but are natural frustrators. So we want you to use them sparingly. So if she says, I want to go outside now, you're not going to say, no, we got to do this first and then we'll go outside. Instead, you're going to say, me too. I want to go outside too, right? It looks fun out there. As soon as we do this, then we'll go outside. So you're not saying no, you're giving the parameters of when you are going to go outside, because you were going to go outside anyway. Use empathy to your advantage. What a bummer we're not able to go outside till we get our stuff done. So let's go out, let's get our stuff done fast. Use the broken record technique. I know you want to go outside. As soon as we get our stuff done, then we go outside ad nauseum. But remember, you're not going to say it more than 3 times, because at the 3rd time, you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to say one more thing about going outside. Then you're going to say one more thing. And then we're all done talking about going outside until our stuff is done. Schedule non-preferred things schedule non-preferred things before preferred things. So for instance, for example, after we work out, after we go for our walk around the block, then we'll come home and have lunch. That can be a very natural incentivizer to do some physical activity that most people with Prader-Willi syndrome are loath to do, because physical activity is a lot. It's like climbing Mount Everest for us every day just to go around the block, because of that low muscle tone and inertia that most people with the syndrome experience. Now, I think this individual is on growth hormone again. If she's been off growth hormone for a while, she's really feeling low energy, low muscle tone. So once she gets back on growth hormone regularly for a while, you may see an improvement in her energy level, which will help her do tasks. But my son is very thin, very on growth hormone, and he'd be much happier sitting on the couch all day long rather than doing anything else. So that lethargy is just really part of the syndrome. Keep her thinking as much as you possibly can instead of spiraling into a feeling behavior. So what do you think we could do about that? Do you think we could do this or this? We want to keep her thinking instead of spiraling. We're coming down to the pike here, guys. Intervention number 7. Allow for the possibility of her rightness. Before I said most people with Prader-Willi syndrome can't be wrong. They have a strong need to be right at all times and at all costs. So lots of disagreements turn into power struggles really quickly and have like a life or death feel to them over about something silly, because to the individual with the syndrome, being wrong feels deathly intolerable. It's kind of at that amygdala brain level that if I'm wrong, I'm going to die, right? So being right is just paramount all the time. So we want you to allow for her rightness in order to avoid power struggles and arguments. So if you're talking about, oh, look what a beautiful day it is outside, it's going to be pretty hot. And she says, no, it's not. It's not hot. Oh, okay. You might be right. Maybe it's just hot for me. Maybe it's not hot for you. That's interesting that it's not hot for you. Well, I didn't even think it would be hot for you. Oh, okay. But if you're trying to teach her like 2 + 2 is 4, and she says, no, it's not, it's 5. You're not going to say, oh, you might be right. That's when you're going to say something like, well, isn't that interesting? You think 2 + 2 is 4, and I'm pretty sure 2 + 2 is, I'm sorry, you think 2 + 2 is 5, and I'm pretty sure 2 + 2 is 4. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why you think that. And then just stop talking, because what you're doing in the stop talking space is allowing her brain to unhook from the oppositionalism and be more ripe to coming around to you, to what you're thinking. Do anticipate that lying to avoid guilt or getting into trouble is just part of the syndrome, and don't get into a power struggle. Don't blame me. I'm not blaming you. Yes, you are. You're blaming me. No, I'm not. I'm not blaming you. Whoa, power struggle. Don't blame me. I heard you, honey. You don't want me to blame you. I heard you. Empathy. Many people with the syndrome believe they should already know something, even if they've never been taught it before. So you're going to, we want you to try to teach as if she already knows this, right? So that might sound something like, you know how to hang up your coat, right? You put one shoulder on the hanger this way, and then you put the other shoulder on the hanger that way, and then you hang it up in your closet. Like you know that, right? Good job. Teach as if they know it. And then role model, it's okay to make a mistake. Oh my gosh, I goofed. Oh my gosh, I goofed. Now you want to stay in the authority position, right? But you want to model that it's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes a mistake, right? Intervention number 8 is using her egocentricity to your advantage. Because Prader-Willi syndrome's neurochemistry typically interferes with the ability to see things from another person's perspective, right? That's why our use of empathy is so critically important, because people with Prader-Willi syndrome really have that inability. It looks like self-centeredness. It looks like egocentrism, because it is. They just think about themselves. They'll love you to pieces, but when it comes down to stuff, it's what I want that I really care about. So we want you to use their egocentrism to increase her cooperation. So don't say, hey, if you don't hurry up, Johnny is going to be late to his doctor's appointment, because Aria is going to come to love Johnny over time, but she could really probably care less whether he's late to his appointment, right? But if you say something like, hey, if we get Johnny to his appointment on time, then we get to come back and we can watch a movie. Well, if watching a movie is what she wants, then she's highly motivated to get Johnny to his appointment on time. So use that. Don't say your yelling is disturbing the other people in this house, right? Because if she's yelling about something, she is advocating for what she wants, what she believes. And people with Prader-Willi syndrome are generally really good self-advocates. They just do it in very socially inappropriate ways. So when you say, though, I hear that you want something. So when you speak softly and you control your body, then we'll be able to talk about what you want, and you're more likely to get it. And don't yell it to her. Bring your voice down so she has to stop to hear you. Teach other person's perspective. Teach an accident versus on purpose, because this is generally lacking. You could use her egocentric thinking to your advantage, like, hey, now that you're 15 years old, I wonder if you're mature enough to sort your own laundry. What do you think? Do you think you're mature enough to sort your own laundry, know how to put whites with whites and colors with colors? Do you think you could do that yourself? I don't know, though. Do you think you're mature enough? Use that, because most people will say, oh, yes, I'm mature enough. And now you've gained her cooperation in that task. Intervention number 9, motivate externally. Because many people with Prader-Willi syndrome have really very poor internal motivation, except when it comes to food. They are externally motivated, right? So you're going to use your verbal praise, encouragement, high fives, special time earned with somebody, earning a special privilege to be the special helper. These things are motivating her so that she's cooperating and doing things that need to be done in your household. Reward systems, utilizing token rewards, stickers, collectibles, work with her to find out what's rewarding and motivating for her and incorporate those into a reward system. And if you want to, you guys may know how to do that already. I spoke with Kedra a while ago about ABA, so you may know a lot about how to use a token reward system in an ABA setting. We just don't want you to take away anything she's earned. It's a little bit different. We never take away with when we're working with somebody with Prader-Willi syndrome. We always add to or get to start again or something along that line. Participate alongside her, especially when you're asking her to do some physical activity. Do it with her because that's more motivating with her. If she has a hard time coming with you, staying on time, then we'll teach you how to do the mama duck technique. Again, never use food as a reward, motivator, incentivizer, or use it to punish. It will backfire in your face every time. So don't do it. Do remember that her executive functioning skills are not working properly. So you're going to help her plan, organize, prioritize, monitor her voice. Many people with the syndrome are way too loud. So you're going to remember, bring your voice lower, bring your voice softer, bring your voice softer. Regulating, chew your food slower, chew your food slower. Okay. These will need to be monitored all and supported all the time. Common sense always impaired. My son is 23. He's extremely bright, graduated from college, like number 4 in the country is graduated from a university with a BA degree in 4 years. So, but he will forget to look both ways before he crosses the street. He's the guy who just has no common sense, right? Guide her to conclusions rather than problem solving for her, so that you're teaching her, do you think we could do this or this to solve that problem? And maximizing whatever problem solving skills she does have. And then remain vigilant against what's called delusional grandiosity. Many people with Prader-Willi syndrome believe they do fantastic things because they're so egocentric. So if you ask her, do you know how to swim? And you don't know this resident yet, she could tell you, oh yes, I placed first in Special Olympics and I got a medal. And then you take her to the pool, and if you're not watching her, she could drown, right? Because she doesn't know how to swim at all. So monitor for safety until you know her actual skill level. Our final intervention, using transition prompts to increase her flexibility. We've got our nice Shakira, very flexible. Many people with Prader-Willi syndrome have attention deficits. At the same time, they often exhibit hyper focus on what they're doing now, which is looks like extreme difficulty moving on from one activity to the other. So you even if the activity that you want her to transition to is a preferred activity, one she wants to do. So use those limited preferred choices. Do you want to stop in 5 minutes or 7 minutes, right? Oh, okay, so you chose 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll be moving in 5 minutes. All right, 4 minutes, it's about time for you to start putting your crayons back in the box. Okay, 3 minutes. Now let's start putting your stuff back in the cupboard. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, and then use lots of empathy. If she's not, lots of praise when she is doing what you're asking her to do. Wow, I'm so proud of you that you were, putting all your stuff away when I asked. Boy, that's a mature behavior for you, right? And then provide lots of empathy. Sorry, I'm making a note to add in that those positive reinforcers. And then provide lots of empathy if she does have a hard time stopping. Yeah, I know it's really hard to stop, isn't it? And you want to keep coloring. I know. You chose 5 minutes to stop, honey, and 5 minutes are up. So what a bummer, it's time to stop. Now, that doesn't mean she's going to stop right away, right? It may be, and that's why we want you to always allot for extra time, especially until you know this resident, she knows you, and she knows you're going to keep to your boundaries. You're not going to take that coloring book away, because now you have escalated a behavior problem, right, by taking something away. You're going to have to, what a bummer, it's time to stop. Isn't that a bummer? And then the rest of the people may go on with the activity, and one of the staff may need to stay with her and then pardon me, and then catch up to the rest of the activity when she has learned to stop, right? If she has a hard time stopping, we'll develop strategies with you to help you with this. Now, these are final thoughts real quickly. Remember that as the professional provider, you are absolutely critical to the health, safety, and overall quality of life of this resident who has Prader-Willi syndrome, who's in your foster care. Bear in mind, though, that everybody has a bad day now and again, including people with Prader-Willi syndrome, and that even the most brilliantly managed intervention that you come up with isn't going to be successful all the time. That's just Prader-Willi syndrome, and actually that's just life. But when you incorporate strategies that you've learned here today, you're going to be creating an environment that exudes overall cooperation and fun amongst not only this foster child, but everybody in the household. And that's going to be reducing stress for everybody. So on behalf of this little girl who's in your care, thank you. I'm now, you've got my contact information. At any time, you can reach out to me. We can brainstorm specific scenarios and anything that is of concern to you. I'm going to stop our share now and open it up to questions if I haven't just blown your brains with all this information. Any questions?
Thank you for that. I thought it was very informative. A lot of the behaviors that you were describing, I can see in Araya, especially the power struggle. So I think those tools were very helpful in rewording how we approach her.
Great. Hi, Kenya.
Hi.
Hi.
How
Good
are
to
you?
see you. Good to see you.
Thank
Any
you very
questions?
much.
Yep.
You're
It's a
welcome.
lot of information,
Mhm.
right? Lots of
It
information.
was the
it's-
biggest thing I think we have to update. I think I just need to get a waiver from licensing for the lock, but I'm sure I can get documentation to support that. So,
You know what? The physician's note that I'm going to email you
okay,
will help you get that documentation, right?
Okay,
And it
perfect.
will also give you, I don't know what physician has been following this resident, but all it is a listing of symptoms that you guys should fill it out first as a team to check off all the symptoms this person has. Then you take it to the physician, get the check off, get him to sign it or her to sign it, right? But fill it out yourself first, and then make sure on the place where the physician writes in what needs to happen is you're saying food must be restricted with locks,
okay,
right? At school, student must be supervised at all times with an aide,
Mhm.
right? When she goes to school, so that if the physician is saying it, boy, it carries a lot of weight, right? Because
Okay.
if a physician says it and then they don't do it, they've just opened themselves up to liability, whether it's the state, and it's got to go through the regional center, the regional too. But maybe you're going through a whole different agency in the foster care system. So I take that back. So your physician's note and whatever he can or she can sign off on locking those, you may be able to get right through your licensing to get that waiver. You know what, I'll also give you, we created a cover letter to request a waiver that we give to our group home settings, adult residential facilities. I'll get you a copy of that and see if it's helpful to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then, okay. Any other questions? Did you think?
Well,
Sorry,
I was
Robin?
also, I was going to say that I'll make sure that the school has taped training, and she will have a one-on-one when she goes back to Bright Futures, and and they're very much like this training anyways, but this just answered a lot of things. And it's not that it's going to be difficult, ladies, but we're all going to be doing it together, really, because it's just to make her less anxious. That's all.
Robin, there's a school training is a little bit different. It's much more geared towards the school environment. So when you get that school team together, let's not have them to, look at a 2-hour residential staff training, but I'll give them a school training. Okay. And that'll really, and then now you've got school trained and you've got all your home staff trained. So now everybody's using the same language, the same, strategies and principles. Boy, this person's going to feel really well supported. That'll reduce her anxiety a lot. Good. One of the things that I just, there are other kids in the house. So are those kids also in the foster system, or are they, relative kids?
Relatives.
Okay, that'll make it a lot easier, because now you're not intruding on the rights of the other foster kids in your care. This is the only foster individual in your care, and this is what she requires. So that's brilliant. That will help you. But your challenge is, okay, but how do we have our kids be able to eat and eat quantities of food that they need to eat for their growing bodies, right? So be thinking about how you think you might want to manage that. If that's something you want to brainstorm, it's the same with siblings, right? Parents who have multiple kids, more than one kid with a syndrome, have the same challenge. So I can share with you some of the things that they have found helpful. It's always a challenge, but.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll stop for today. I'm so grateful that you guys are just jumping in to help support this young lady. You are angels for sure. You guys have equal wings, but that's for darn sure.
Oh, thank
know
you.
we're available as a resource. Like Robin said, we're all on the same team. We're going to be available to you at any time. Okay. You have my cell, Kedra?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not that I want to encourage you to call me at 2 a.m, but if you have an issue, I'll help you through it. And once you get a lot of these things down and incorporating and routinized, you're going to see far fewer behaviors if you're seeing them now yet. Okay. I will
You'll be sending
email.
us.
Yep, I'll email y'all the link to this video as soon as I got it, along with the rest of the things I promised you. Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone. I'm
It was
excited for the
very
success of
good.
us.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Good job.
Have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Good job.
Bye.
Bye-bye.